Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very powerful show coming right up. Our special guest today is Emily Francis, and she's here to talk to us about her new book, The Body Heals Itself: How Deeper Awareness of Your Muscles and Their Emotional Connection Can Help You Heal. Now, Emily has worked in corporate wellness as an aerobic director, kickboxing instructor, and yoga instructor. She's a clinical massage therapist with extensive specialized training and the author of Stretch Therapy. Emily holds a gold medal in the U.S. Open in Tai Chi Form and a bachelor's degree in exercise science and wellness. She is currently pursuing a master's degree in physical education and human performance. So let's welcome to the show, Emily.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hey, it's such a pleasure to have you here. And once I picked up your book, I couldn't put it down. I had no idea all this stuff was so connected.
I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you.
Well, and so before we jump into the book, I always love to hear, what has inspired you on this path of learning how the body works?
I think I've been in love with the body as long as I have been moving. Really. When I was a child, I started gymnastics at age 3, and I know that when I was a child, I used to tell everybody I wanted to be a bodybuilder when I grew up, and my dad would make me tell all of his friends, what do you want to be? And I always loved muscles, and I always loved exercise. But it wasn't until after college, I was a collegiate cheerleader, and after college, I started teaching aerobics and kickboxing, but then I became a corporate wellness director, and I brought in a yoga instructor and a Tai Chi instructor, and I took their classes just so that I could cover when they were out. But it turns out I fell madly in love with the more Eastern philosophy of body movement, and I'd never been in a class where they talked about energy so freely, and how we move and our intention and our breath and our awareness. And it completely changed the path that I was on into a sharp right turn and much deeper. And then it wasn't until several years later that I went to massage school, and that's when I truly fell in love with the body and understanding that your body speaks a lot of information, and not very many people know how to decipher what it's saying. But the body, it doesn't lie, and it has a lot of information. It's screaming for you to talk to it. So I felt like when I started putting my hands on people, I felt like people's bodies were saying, hey, over here, you can hear me, yes. And so I really went down that path, and I did it with everything I've got.
Oh, well, what a fabulous story. And it just seems like you followed your passion, your calling all this time. And how great is that?
It's been a lot of fun. I realized, even with all of my studies, my undergrad degree is exercise science and wellness, and I realized that everything I've done is in this wheelhouse somewhere. It all fits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of all roads lead to the work that you've been doing.
Yeah.
Well, and so when people talk about muscle and memory and emotions, how does that all link up?
It makes me sad that it's been overlooked for so long. We understand muscle memory, right? We know that you do a certain skill and you learn it and your muscles lock it in and they remember how to do it, and then we sort of take it for granted. But there's so much more to muscle memory than physical movements. Anything that happens to you in your life, joyful or traumatic, it locks in to the cell and the fibers and every part of your body, not just in your mind. And that's where people get lost, is they think that just your mind has to deal with these emotions and these experiences. But the truth is that not only does every cell and every fiber and your blood, everything locks it in, but your muscles, in my opinion, lock it in much the way the mind does. It's like a vault. And in the belly of the muscles, the deep middle of the actual muscles holds the same information that your mind does, except that it doesn't have an ego running the show. And so if you can actually get to the muscles themselves, it'll help unlock the mind and go with you to release those traumas in a deep and profound way that can truly help your whole body rearrange itself into healing.
Mm. Well, and you hear often when people talk about muscle memory and cellular memory, and that makes perfect sense.
It does. I don't know. I wish there was more clinical testing on this, but it's all real. And I started this particular study of the emotions and the muscle in my first year of massage school while I was in school. And the teacher had made a really quick mention. He didn't even mean much by it, but he said, there's two muscles in the body that are highly emotional, and that is the psoas, which is your primary hip flexor, and the longus coli, which is in the front of the throat. And he said, these muscles are highly emotional, so if you work on them, be prepared that your client may very well have an emotional release. They might cry. They might get really uncomfortable. And you have to be very soft in your approach and very understanding and give them that space to release. And everybody just kind of took notes and kept going. I waited till class was over, and I went to the teacher and I said, okay, where's the book? I have got to know everything on all the muscles and their emotions. And how do you know this? Who wrote the book? Where's the information? And he said, there is no book. This has just been passed down through body workers through the generations of something we all know, but it's not been documented. And that, to me, began the start of this thing. So for the last 15 years, I have been studying that idea and matching it up and picking the brains of everybody in my field and similar fields. And time again, I was getting confirmation that the same areas of the body were guarding the same emotions. And then it became to the point where people would come to me, and as soon as they told me where they were in pain, I could basically tell them potentially or ask them and have it line up, what's going on in your life? And then, lo and behold, these answers were all in line. And we've missed it. And I just want the world to know that there's more. Your body tells a million things. There's different people that can read different parts of your body, your energy body, your spiritual body, your cognitive mind. And we go to those people for help. But nobody really explains that when your body hurts, when it's painful, or where you carry pain, or it's been a long-standing pain that you've never been able to get rid of, that's when you go to somebody that can really work with your muscles, but with the emotional body as well, which is not everyone.
So what is that practitioner called? Is there a name for that?
I would look for a practitioner that has some clinical background, so they really understand the anatomy, but I would also look for somebody that does the integrative therapy and the energy work, because it's in the energy work. Your energetic body is really where the miracles live. It really is. If you can engage in the energy part of yourself, that's where big healing lives. And so to go to somebody that sort of misses the energy part, you're only going to get the muscles worked. And then a few days later, you're going to have that pain again because you didn't unite the muscles with the mind and allow yourself that release.
Yeah. Well, and so having somebody like that can both see energetically what's going on and then work on you physically, it sounds like it makes such a huge difference. I've really realized how many people I've seen have really miraculous shifts in their body, their mind, their life, their healing by the release that they had. And I think that what it comes down to is permission. It's figuring out however you need to give yourself permission to heal and be happy in your life. So if that's a body worker, if that's a psychiatrist, if that's a psychologist, it's somebody that you can help you give yourself internal permission to heal. To heal and move forward.
Yes.
So we talked about muscles, memory, and emotions. How about when we talk about like emotions, just the mental state, let's pull in that mental part into it, and the energetic body, which we've been touching on.
The emotions are your most powerful ally, and we run from it. But really it's your power place, is to get to a place where you can understand what you're feeling and admit what you're feeling, because it carries in your body. And I actually interview someone in my book that talks about the way that we hold our bodies up emotionally. So he said something about when your shoulders slump, he knows that you're depressed, that you're in sorrow. But if you were talking to an acupuncturist, they would say, of course your shoulders are slumped because your lung meridians run through there, and that governs sadness, and that's in the chest area and the lungs. It's just really neat because your emotions are carried. They're carried in every part of your body. But we get really in our own way a lot of times when it comes to honoring what we have been through and how we feel about it. And again, it's that permission thing. It's being validated that what you feel is okay to feel, and what you feel is real, and that your body's been hanging on to it, and so has your mind, but we lock it away. So it's not like it's sitting up at the front and we're waiting for somebody to just come by and help us out real quick. It's deep. It's locked in the vault. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense, because, and I know, when I've had body work done, I know that, even stuff can be stored up for kind of a long time, and you don't really realize it, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, okay, I just got hit with that,
And those things make the difference between getting body work and having the pain return a few days later and getting body work and actually changing the whole foundation, where you don't keep getting the same pain because you now understand how to work with it and you understand how to release it. And, there's a lot of different ways to release. Coughing is a big one. Things that you haven't said tend to come up in coughing. And fidgeting and even ticklish. People get ticklish. That's a pain response. Right underneath being ticklish is painful. It's something emotional. Now, the greatest way to release, though, is through tears, because tears are a physical manifestation of pain leaving your body. You cannot put them back in. And that is a depth. It comes from the soles of the feet, up the legs, up into all those vulnerable organs and areas in the midsection, and then they cloud your whole eyes and finally leave with your thoughts and your body all lining up to say, okay, it's okay. It's okay. You can leave. This pain doesn't have to stay so deeply. And that happens with tears. So if I can get a person to come to the point where we not only release the muscles, but we get them to cry, it's such a gorgeous shift in their whole body. And it's not like they cry every time they're on my table. They usually just cry the first time.
Yeah.
There's just something that happens. I had a girl that I worked on just the other day, and I just started at her feet. I just said, I just want to feel your body, take a look, and see where we're at before we get started. And I placed my hands on her feet, and she started crying, and she said, oh, my gosh, you haven't even started yet, and I'm crying. What's wrong with me? And my husband goes, did you tell her that's what you do? And I said, no, I didn't tell her that's what I do, but it does tend to happen a lot, around me. I told her that it's a safe space and that we encourage this and not to block, but people get really uncomfortable with that, and they fear after that, am I going to make them cry every time I see them? And no, the answer is no. It's just that there's such a beautiful thing that happens with sacred touch, with touch that has no reciprocation needed, that's unconditional love and healing with, you don't owe me anything. You just lay there and receive, and it's just in the purest form, someone that can touch and help your body to release and to feel safe. A safe space is paramount.
Yeah, for sure.
For this kind of work.
For sure. What if you have somebody that says, you know what, I never cry, and they don't get to that point where crying something that they feel like they're able to do, or just being able to open up enough where they can cry?
Usually when they say they never cry, somehow they do end up getting a little teary. But I would take it to the other levels, coughing, yelling. Yelling is powerful, and I don't mind letting you yell on my table. Yelling is really powerful. It's going through, I discuss in the book the chakras, the body's energy centers, and a lot of times when your throat, I'll start with this for listeners that are not familiar with the body's energy centers. We understand instinctively that our heart is two different things. It's a pericardium with 4 chambers that pump blood. It's a muscle. And our heart, that we get our hearts broken, our hearts are in it, we wear our heart on our sleeve. That's the heart chakra. And in this country, we understand that. Okay, it's your heart. But when we talk about the other parts of the body that also have energy and emotion attached to it, we sort of get lost to that. Mm-hmm. So moving up from the heart is your throat area, and that's your ability to speak your truth, and also when you feel like you are being heard or not being heard. So if you are trying to tell how you feel, but everybody waves you off, or you need to get over it, or they, dismiss your feelings, that blocks in your throat. And so when you're on a table and you're trying to release, yelling, coughing, screaming, deep breathing, powerful puffing breathing, things that come out of the throat are very powerful release mechanisms. So I don't need you to necessarily cry. I just need you to acknowledge what's going on inside and then let it release. So if a lot of it is anger, then I don't need you to cry. I need you to get powerful. When it comes to angry emotions in your body, I like to meet force with force on that so that they can step up in their own power and claim it. Because removing those blocks in your throat area is a whole different game when you start telling the truth or you start feeling validated or being heard or making sure that you're heard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when that is an open highway of energy right there. You can do that.
And how important is that to really be able to be personally empowered, whatever way that looks like? If you're able just to yell and scream or be able to cry, that you're just releasing these emotions so they don't end up, keeping you stuck.
Correct. That's powerful. That's a game changer. When somebody gets up and realizes that, hey, you know what? I do have something to say, and I mean it, and I need you to hear me. It's also the way that we approach conversations. It sort of changes our perspective and how we can approach things and make sure that we can assert ourselves. Being assertive used to be really hard for me, and I got run over a lot because I was always so afraid to speak up. And now I speak up not in a mean way, but in a clarifying way, that I need to speak my truth. I certainly don't mean to offend. Am I to infer that this is what you're trying to, I want to validate their feelings. I want to say my feelings. It's really, really important. But it took me a long, many years to step up and be comfortable to say, excuse me, I need to speak to.
I think a lot of people can understand that, where, you kind of go through this progression. Either if you do speak, maybe it's kind of aggressive, and so it's learning how to taper that down so that, you're able to express your authentic self without having to get into aggression.
Correct. And that's a fine line when you're aggressive, when you're a louder person. It's really realizing that you don't want to put people off, but the value and the power in words, you can change somebody's life with your words. I mean, I have a personal rule. It's my own personal golden rule that if I think something positive about somebody, I share it. So I stop strangers on the street. You are so lovely. I love this, scarf, or, your energy is so beautiful. I like to say that kind of stuff. I don't say it to lift you up. I don't say it because I love, fluffing compliments and whatever. It's just if those things go through my mind, I'll stop you and tell you because you don't know the power of what that does for somebody in their life. They might be miserable, and then they have some person say, I think you're really special and powerful, and hope you honor that. It's really beautiful. That's something that they carry with them. And so I do that as often as I can when I have those real thoughts. I don't make them up, but if something goes through my head, I like to point it out, even if I don't know them. I hate to bother you. I just want you to know.
I stop people all the time. I'll be like, gosh, I love that scarf. Or,
yes.
It's just, when you're feeling it and you see it, why not say it,
Why wouldn't you say that? I don't know why people seem to only approach. There's a lot of people that only approach if it's a criticism. And isn't that sad?
Mm-hmm.
Or a put down, But how wonderful is it to have somebody that has nothing to gain tell you something nice that they thought?
That's a nice place to be in, isn't it?
It's a great place to be. And I want to share as much positive joy as I can because I want somebody to feel better for having been around me, not deflated for having been around me.
Oh, without a doubt. Well, and so let's talk about some of the different body, the different parts of the body and how that affects us and what this is all connected to. Because I found this fascinating. Your book was so in-depth. I mean, we can spend days on it, which we won't, because everyone needs to go pick up their own copy of The Body Heals Itself. But why don't we start with the back? Because I think a lot of people are like, oh, my God, my back is always hurting.
My back. It depends on what part of your back hurts. But our backs carry so much emotion for a multitude of reasons. So let's start with the top of the shoulders, where people often come in and go, my shoulders hurt all the time, the tops of the shoulders. That is the place where you feel the weight of the world on your shoulders. It's literal. It actually does go into the traps. But it's also that particular part of your body, when it hurts all the time, is a self-induced pain. It's self-created. And I mean that because people that carry pain in the tops of their shoulders, the tops of their back, tend to be type A in their personality. Mm-hmm. They have a really difficult time delegating and letting somebody else take some of the weight off. because they feel like nobody can do it like they do. So you know those people that like, oh, I'll just do it myself. You know what? I want it done a certain way. I'll do it myself. Well, you're packing on weight onto the top of those shoulders, and each time that you decide that nobody can do it as well as you, it goes deeper and deeper. It's also a pressure. You know, you have to be perfect. You have to be whatever it is that you've created in your mind that you're supposed to be. To keep that up is really heavy, right, in general life, and that's where it sits. As we move down into the shoulder blades, right behind the heart, that is betrayal areas. So people that have those pains right behind the shoulder blades and they never can seem to get rid of them, those are generally deep-held betrayals. When you've been stabbed in the back, that's where it is, right behind the heart. And that makes sense, right, that you've been betrayed, so that's where it would be in location. The mid-lower back, those erector muscles and paraspinals that support the spine, those are your support muscles. They help you to move forward in your life. They help you to have confidence in your decisions. They are with you, but they also can wreak havoc when you are not clear on your direction and you're kind of all over the place. Your back will kind of act up a little bit and let you know. And then the lower back is where the big tricks lie. That sacrum area governs fear of moving forward, financial security fears, or fears of material possessions, things that are attached to the being human, and loss. So loss, moving forward, and financial security all sit in that low back. Now that's all the negative parts. You know, if you're in good alignment, then you feel really strong and powerful in the low back, and you feel comfortable moving forward. You know, so everything that I'm saying here, take the opposite when you're in good space. And the low back is interesting. This is where it comes into a little deeper because you really need to be familiar with your anatomy or have somebody helping you that's familiar with their anatomy. Because in that low back area, there is a muscle that starts on the spine, but on the spine facing the stomach, facing the front. And it crosses across the body to the front of the body and is very thick in the stomach area, lower abdomen, between the pubic bone and the hip bone, and then it inserts on the inner thigh. That is the psoas muscle. Remember at the beginning of this talk, I talked about that the psoas muscle is one of your most emotional muscles in the body. That is the exact counter muscle to the low back. So when your back goes out and you can't stand up, it's actually not that your back went out, it's that your psoas cramped up. So you actually have to treat the front, not the back, to release the back. Not that you don't treat the back, but you're not going to get the release unless you treat the front. So the psoas not only is your power player muscle to the low back because it's what allows you to sit down. It's what allows you to lift your knee up. So if you're driving in a car for a long time, you're sitting for a long time, that psoas gets shortened. But it's also, it innervates in the lumbar plexus of your central nervous system. It's nervy. And so when you feel shocks and pains to your body, that's a great muscle to lock in your memory. And then it's also in that area right around the reproductive organs. So if you have been the subject of being mishandled, that muscle is going to very much lock in your pain, trauma, and shame. So there's a lot happening in that lower region between the low back and the psoas. And I think that that's an incredible part to notice because people spend years in back pain and not really realizing that some of this needs to be treated from the front and needs to be acknowledged. Is there other things that are going on in there?
Yeah, so people can really kind of look at what's really happening as opposed to just going, gosh, you know, I just have back pain. I'm going to have to live with it.
Yes. Our body has deep, profound wisdom that we minimize at every turn, but the body does not lie. And so, you know, in looking at that, we realize that we're missing a crucial point of the fact that our bodies are masterminds.
Well, and so when you see people, what is some of the things, I mean, we talked about the back, what are some of the other things that people see you for specifically that you kind of see over and over and over again?
Well, I actually specialize in something called manual lymphatic drainage and combined decongestive therapy. And when I shorten that, it means I'm a lymphedema therapist. Lymphedema is a chronic swelling that can never be cured but only managed, and it generally happens post-cancer. So you can imagine that I see a lot of people that have perpetual swelling issues. I bandage them, and we do the movement. It's really profound work, I have to say, because the lymph liquid is just beneath the skin but above the muscle. So it's very soft work very tedious work. And we move the fluid to other parts of the body that can help digest it. So a woman that's had breast cancer that comes in and can't see their elbow or their knuckles, at the end of the session they can see their elbow and their knuckles. And then we bandage and we keep it low. Now, because I do tend to work with a lot of post-cancer, I'm really an energy therapist. I really work with your energy body, your spiritual body, where you are in time and space, and understanding that. So I see that a lot, working with those traumas. That's why I'm so in alignment with letting those traumas, shames and guilt and trauma leave your body through the tears, because I work with people like that desperately need that release. So more than anything else in my practice, I'm either working with athletes, and on a clinical day, which I don't share days with my lymphatic work. And then the lymphatic days, I'm in a totally different mind space, and we're really going deep into the depths. Because I got to tell you, I speak for cancer support groups, I work with people, and I talk about anxiety. And one of the things that I always start my talks with is, I worked on a woman who had had breast cancer and ovarian cancer. She had really been through the ringer, and I worked on her a few times, and then she called me close to the end of her life and said, I know you don't like to work on people when they're going through cancer, but I'm terminal, and I'm begging you to come and help. And so I did. And one of the things that she said that I always quote is, you will never meet an atheist in the chemo suite. Something happens when you're sick, that all of the blocks that you have to your spiritual truth are removed. And those people go deeper and are more open to alternative therapies and healing and treatments because they have to. Yeah. Those choices of being closed-minded have been removed for them. And so you really do have highly spiritual, beautiful people that just want any sort of healing that they can get, and comfort and peace. And so I work not predominantly, but in large part with that particular group. And so my practice is a very spiritual practice when we're in that space.
Now, it sounds like even though you do cover a lot of things, you also have really advanced knowledge in certain areas as well.
I do. I'm very specialized, and I'm so grateful for it. And I don't write about the lymphatic at all in this book. I talk about the muscles. We talk about the energy and the emotions, because the lymphatic is such a clinical thing, and it's really hard to explain, I think, in a book in that way. But it really has given me, there's only 3 of us that are trained to the level that I'm trained in the state. There's not very many across the country. And it really does give me insight into people's space and their bodies. You know, I work on people that have breast cancer or had. I don't work on people that are currently going through treatment. I work with people that are in remission or are terminal and ask for specific help. And so I'm one of the only people that can work directly on the breast. So making people feel safe and doing this work is the utmost importance to me, that somebody can come into my space and allow me to work with their body in a way that makes them feel very, very safe, and that we can provide healing. And what I've noticed from that work, and this is where I get the title of the book, is when people give themselves permission to heal, when they have that huge emotional release, the body rearranges itself on the inside, and the sacred wisdom takes over. And the body does heal itself. And that doesn't mean that everybody walks out healed, because that's not true. You can be cured here in the physical realm, but you're healed in the spirit realm. So not everybody gets to experience their healing here while they're on earth. So I don't want to be misleading with that. But the body itself is what does the healing. It's never me. It's never anybody that's working with them. It's what your body and your spirit decide to do with the work.
You're just kind of allowing for the energy to flow better.
Yeah, you know, I'm the middleman. I kind of call myself a negotiator sometimes. I just kind of in the middleman between Great Spirit and them, and kind of open myself up and let the energy flow. And there was a woman that came to me. Her oncologist sent her to me because she had ovarian cancer, and there was only one particular type of chemotherapy that was supposed to treat her. It was supposed to be like an A to B thing. You have this, we have this treatment, then you're going to be okay. Well, her body rejected the treatment. And so the oncologist said, look, there's a lady, I don't know what she does, I really don't, but go to her and see if she can get your body to take it. So she called me up, and I said, clear your schedule. And by the way, I'm not one of those people that charges on the back end. I charge one flat fee, and I don't stick to time, which is why I don't work back to back. and I cleared the day, and she had just a huge emotional release. I literally pulled a trash can next to the table in case she was going to vomit. The tears, the amount of crying was deep, deep, and the conversation that we had was something I don't think she's ever had before with anyone. And after that, her body was able to take the chemo. I only saw her once for that. Mm-hmm. It was her body. The power of your body when you are given internal permission to heal can change everything in your life.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, that's amazing.
I find it
what
so
the body
fascinating.
Can do.
Yeah.
It is, right? It's really, I started to write that stuff in the book, and I ended up researching all sorts of stuff when it comes to terminal illness and all that. And the night before I turned it in, something in me said, take all that part out, because I don't want to scare people. And I don't want to make people feel like this is your destiny if you don't open up and you're not emotionally open. I don't want to say that. So I actually left all that out. But it's important on interviews that I do share that, because it's been such a gift to be part of these miracles that I get to watch the way that the body can heal. This person's 8 years out now and healthy and loves life and exercises all the time, and she loves her life. But her body did that when she got out of the way and was given permission from the inside to heal. And isn't that the coolest thing in the whole world, that kind of emotional release could let your body say, okay, let's start over. Let's do this again.
Let's give this another look and move forward. Well, and on the topic of moving forward, we talked about this a little bit. I know you talk a lot about, because you've got different sections for great things. You talk about our legs and how they're kind of the storehouse for moving forward or staying stuck. And I'd love for you to kind of just dive into that a little bit deeper.
I love the legs. The legs are not as emotional as things that are near the vulnerable organs, but the legs are fantastic, and they are big storytellers, because the legs are all about moving forward in your life or staying stuck. So the hips are your gatherers of information, and they kind of imagine your hips with like laser guns attached to them, because once you get your sights set on a target, the laser guns kind of point and shoot, and then your legs follow and move. But when you're in a place in your life where you don't know what the next right step is and you feel really discombobulated, it almost feels like you're standing in quicksand. I promise you're going to start having knee problems. Your knees are going to act up because you don't know which way to go. And so your knees kind of get wobbly. And I question this a lot, because what about people that are serious athletes, but then all of a sudden after 20 years they tear their ACL? That matters. Where are you in your life? Are you towards the end of your career? You don't really know what you're going to do, the emotion, the stress, potentially. Or it could be just straight up a physical issue that you did. So it's one or the other, but I still think they're linked. Let me just say that. So the knees, when people come to me and all of a sudden their knees start aching, I can immediately say, what decision is it that you're having such a hard time with in your life? And they always go, how do you know that? Well, because you've never come to me with a knee problem before. Now all of a sudden your knees are acting up. That's emotional. Because they're not hurt. You didn't tear something. You're not, under surgery. I'm talking about knee aches and pains where all of a sudden you don't know where that pain came from. That's when you're lost and stuck and standing at a crossroads and you just don't know the next right step. The quads are all about supporting your move. They are your powerhouse muscles. They help you to take each step once your hips lock and load. Your hamstrings are more like the guardians. There's not a lot of energy in the hamstrings, even though a lot of people get hurt in the hamstrings. That's really from the hips and from shortening the legs, maybe wearing too much high heels. The hamstrings are more like your bodyguards. That's what I attribute them to energetically. They will always support your decision the best that they can, but they're a little stoic, which is why they're a little rough and not quite as supple and movable. Your calf muscles, shaped like a heart because they pump your blood back up to your heart. So if your heart is not in something, your calves might tweak. Plus the calves, because they're the heart space too, are always really sensitive, no matter who you are. I don't care if you are a 350-pound football player, you will almost be in tears if we go too deep in the calves. They're very sensitive area. You got to treat them with care and with love, and not straight up the middle. You got to go up those heart lobes when you're working with them.
Well, and so it's interesting just seeing how these different parts really affect everything. And it all comes back in many ways to just the emotional well-being and the spiritual and, mental well-being of an individual.
Yes, it does. It all matters. And the ankles, I find this interesting because I didn't actually come up with this one myself. I got this one from a lady that I interviewed for my book, and she does something called toe reading, which is fascinating, by the way. But the ankles, she talked about, represent the sweetness of life. So if you are not letting yourself really enjoy the good parts of life, your ankles might act up. And they're kind of considered the sweet spots. Now, in reflexology, around the ankles are the reproductive areas that it correlates with. So it makes sense, the whole sweet spot, and are you enjoying? And, you know, it's not that you have to be terribly indulgent, but are you allowing yourself to indulge some in your life? Because the ankles will give you up if you're not. If you are always, you know, on a diet, you're never letting yourself enjoy anything that you really like, you're always kind of without or taking away from yourself, the ankles are going to have some issues.
Yeah.
And then the feet are different because you have a lot of muscles and tendons and things that matter that affect your feet. But your feet are also your map. They tell what's going on with your life. Like that same woman that did the toe reading can look on the lines of somebody's foot and tell trauma that they've had. It shows up in various areas of the feet, which I find fascinating and scary. And the toes themselves represent different things aside from what the reflexology maps say. But as far as like the soles of the feet and the palms of the hands, they're your maps and they're your energy readers. That's where the energy starts and ends in your body, is from the bottom of your feet. And it's also, I love to be barefoot and feel the earth energy coming up through my feet because they absorb energy up in and they release energy out. So the feet are very, very powerful. And if you who's listening doesn't get barefoot enough, maybe think about taking those shoes off a little bit, especially children. Go play in the dirt. Go play in the grass. Feel the earth. Let it be up into your body. If your feet are available, it'll go up into your whole being. But if you're wearing shoes all the time, you have a guard against some really beautiful healing energy. So that's important that we keep our feet available.
Yeah, I think people don't realize how important it is to have that connection to the earth, especially because, I mean, the body is from the earth, you know?
Yes. And when you take your shoes off, without even meaning to, you will find yourself taking a deep breath. There's something that happens magnetically when you link up with the earth energy. Something, your lungs expand, the sadness sort of dissipates, and your heart opens up into love space, and you kind of lift your head up and look at the sun because you're barefoot. Or how many times when you're on the beach, you have to be barefoot in the sand. I mean, you don't have to, but who really wants to walk around in the sand without, you know, and feel that sand and the ocean, and all of a sudden all your senses become open because you're allowing that earth and sky to come into one, into your whole body. That's why we call it earthing. And then there's a process that I have in the book called mixing heaven and earth. And it's a breathing and an arm movement. It comes down through the body into the earth. And you want to mix heaven and earth. I mean, sometimes we just need to be reminded just to stop for a minute. Take a breath and give thanks and be aware of what's happening around you. We get really short-sighted a lot and caught up in our own stuff, and then our body kind of shortens and our posture comes in and we slump and we close in and we carry ourselves differently, and then when we're sort of reminded to open up and allow ourselves that beautiful sacred connection and that there's more to life than just what's inside us, there's something bigger than us that's part of our daily life, it changes. So, I don't know, get barefoot, get jiggy with it a little bit. Try it just for today, you know.
Well, it really puts a person in a place of gratitude, having that kind of connection with everything. You know, when you're barefoot and running around, it just really puts you in a whole different state of mind.
My kids are barefoot a lot. And I live in Georgia, so it's not terribly freezing the way that it is right now around the rest of the country. And my children, they just love to get barefoot, and they like to hug the trees and say hello. And, you know, they're my hippie children because they're my children. You know, we were outside under the moon last night dancing and praying and giving thanks and thank you for our friends and our food and our air and, you know. But I think it's so important because really if you're anywhere near a child or an animal, they'll show you the way of purity, what magic really is out there.
Yeah. And, you know, and so that kind of leads me to the next next one I have. So, talking about, when we get into purity and being one with nature and what have you. So we've talked about our feet. Let's talk about our head. What does that all symbolize? How is that all connected, and what does it work with?
Oh, well, there's so many specifics to that. That's sort of a wide open.
It is a wide open, isn't it?
It's wide open. There's a lot happening there with our heads. So let's start with the neck.
Why don't you pick some of your favorite then? Because I figured that was kind of loaded. Yeah.
My favorite is the jaws. Hands down, the jaws. You almost are guaranteed not to get off my table without me putting on gloves and going inside your mouth. It's almost a guarantee, because I believe that your jaws are the link. They're the lock. They're the lockdown of your whole head. So tension headaches are from the jaws. Neck aches can be released through the jaws. The throat chakra. So the jaws emotionally represent the way that we hang on to things. So, especially women, and I don't mean to be sexist, but especially women, we tend to really analyze almost everything around us. So we play it over and over and over, and then we chew on the bone. And men do it, but in a different way. They clench down with the stress and whatever, and I'm not a man, so I can't really say what they think in their heads, but I know personally I tend to replay stories to the point of exhaustion, and I hang on to them, so they're in the jaws. And when you can go inside the mouth, because there's a particular jaw muscle that you cannot get to from the outside. So even if you're rubbing your jaws from the outside, you can't get there to the one that I need, which is called the lateral pterygoid. It starts with a P, so it looks like pterygoid, but it's pterygoid. And that little magic muscle can release your jaws, your sinuses, your neck, your eyes, your throat. It's the game changer. So here's my nugget of wisdom today that matters the most, and that is that if you can take a cork from a wine bottle or from an arts and crafts store, and you take that cork vertically up and down between the top and bottom teeth for 3 minutes, you will release your jaw muscles, your neck muscles, the temporalis muscle that doesn't just start in the temples but fans all the way around the head, around the ears to the neck. You will change in your thought patterns. You will immediately line your neck properly with that cork in. So your chin will slightly go in, and your spine will be straight, and everything opens. You will drool like a St. Bernard, but it's beautiful. I don't care. You can remove it and swallow. But I keep the corks in my glove compartment, and so when I'm stuck in traffic and realize that I'm clenching down, I pull out my cork and I just sit in the car and I bite down, because the cork has that beautiful non-pressure that doesn't hurt. You're not biting on wood, So it's cork and it's soft and you can bite down, but it's your magic. It's your magic moment of release. So as far as the head, that is my greatest offering that I could possibly tell you, for the neck, for the jaws, for awareness, for breathing, for getting rid of those tension headaches, for leaving the office. If you work at a computer, please, dear God, go get some corks and put them in your glove box and put them in your mouth as soon as you leave the office, so that you can reset your thoughts, reset your body. But that's the monster, is the jaws.
Well, and it's interesting. Your book talks about, you talk about the things that most people complain about, like, oh, my back hurts, my neck hurts, my head hurts, my feet, whatever the case is. They usually will focus on the negative of what's going on there. But you also talk about the positive, and with the head, face, and jaw, you talk about how that's about gaining clarity and having a wider vision.
Yes, because when those act up, you get really limited in your vision. The neck is all about being able to see what's going on around you, the movement. And when it is open and you can actually access all the way around or be available, then your vision is so much clearer, and you can see wider, and your thoughts change, and your breath change. There's an old Native American saying that says, where there's breath, there's life, or there's hope. Where there's breath, there's hope. You always still have hope because you're breathing. And when your neck opens and you're able to move your head, and I talk about the breath and the neck for this particular reason. I'm not just being random. There are muscles on the side of your neck called the scalene muscles. There's 3 of them, anterior, medial, posterior. The front one, the anterior,
it sneaks under your collarbone and attaches to your first rib. So when that muscle gets too tight, it is incredibly hard to breathe in. So when you finally get some release in there, you can take that deep breath and you can do the exhale. So I'm not just kind of randomly alluding to everything's about your breath. Those neck muscles really govern a lot of breathing that we don't think about. And I want to offer this for breathing. Your diaphragm is responsible for 80% of your lung capacity, while the other 10 is in the middle, the chest, and the last 10% is in the clavicle, the collarbone. So you have to have all of that to get a whole breath. And for anybody that's listening that hasn't really done breath practice, I want to say this because it's so important. Whenever we say take a deep breath or calm your breathing, we immediately think to take this giant inhale, which is so stressful. It does not calm your mind when you take this, because now you're stressed again, and you've gone up into the chest, and so you've only used 10 or 20% of your breath capacity. So I'm going to give you another little nugget of wisdom. The way to get 100% lung capacity, first of all, you exhale as deeply as you can. Don't think about the inhale. You bring your arms down to your sides, and you inhale and lift your arms all the way up to your ears at the same time. And it immediately goes diaphragm, chest, clavicle, without even having to think. And then when you exhale, you lower the arms, and it goes clavicle, chest, diaphragm. So it opens and closes 100% of your lung capacity without making you feel like you're going to pass out. Because the whole shortness of breath thing is what the anxiety response is, and it's because it's stuck so high in your body. So that's the other little nugget of wisdom is just put your arms down by your sides. Inhale, lift them up over your head. Exhale, lower them down. I don't care if it's straight ahead or out to the side. It really doesn't matter. But you'll expand and open those lungs because the ribs will expand and your lungs can then expand and everything's working in unison. So that's really important. It's the easiest practice in the whole world. And the other easy practice is focus on the exhale, not the inhale. So you want the exhale to be twice as long as the inhale. And the inhale is only a reaction to the exhale. So let your mind think about breathing out and clearing the body, clearing the mind, emptying, without making all of your thoughts and breath be so high up in that chest. Mm-hmm. So I hope that people that listen to that really put that into practice, because I think the simplifying things get missed a lot. It's almost like people don't offer those easy nuggets because they want to show you how deep you can go, and really, like, bring it back to the basics. It's so super simple. And I want you to have your lung capacity and your whole breath in. That should be what makes you feel better, not worse.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, because a lot of times when you do that big, huge breath in, it's like,
you don't feel any better at all. And then you wonder, like, why did you just tell me to take that, take a deep breath, take a deep breath? Well, if you don't teach somebody how to take that deep breath, then all you see them do is that, and then you think, okay, don't you feel worse? I want you, it's just, and that's from me who dealt with anxiety for a really long time, so I had to reteach myself how to breathe and how to, like, I would kind of run out of the space and go to the bathroom and put my arms down by my side and lean against the wall and just inhale and lift my arms up so that the backs of my hands would touch the wall, and then I would exhale and lower the arms down. And I would do it 10 times in succession, and I would notice that, oh my gosh, I actually am oxygenated. Okay, my mind is clearer. I can go back to whatever it is I need to do.
Yeah,
so that's the magic.
Well, and that's such great advice, because a lot of time, a lot of people are dealing with stress and anxiety. It's like, ooh, what can I do during my day when I feel like I just want to breathe in a paper bag,
Exactly. And breathing in a paper bag is actually really good because you're lowering the oxygen and raising the carbon dioxide, which calms the body too. So that is a valid thing to do. There's just little tricks. But, I always say start your morning before you get out of bed, laying down, have your arms down by your sides. Inhale, bring your arms up and overhead, touch the knuckles behind you to the bed. Exhale, lower them down. Keep your arms straight. Let your lungs work with you. Get your mind situated before you get out of bed. Do 5 or 10 before you even start your day. And notice how different your day is going to be because you started it in a more centered space. Because what happens is we wake up, usually earlier than we want to, and we're immediately counting off our list. Okay, today's Tuesday. Here's what I've got to do today. All right, I got to get started. What time is it right now? Okay, I got to move. I got to go. But if you stopped for a minute and said, okay, I'm just going to realign my body, start my morning right, and then I'll figure out the rest, all of a sudden your clarity is a little bit different, and you can think like, okay, it's Tuesday. Today I have these things. All right, I'm just gonna do this one. I'm not gonna think about the rest yet because this is the time for this thing. It sort of just rearranges your thought patterns.
Yeah, it kind of gets you into a different mindset. Well, and so what kind of tips would you give somebody if they're, working from a desk all day and just kind of feeling like, gosh, I feel pretty just cramped all day, like I'm, just here. What thoughts would you share with them on how they can expand themselves? I'm going to have to pump
myself for this. I'm going to self-promote because I'm here for The Body Heals Itself. But I've written another book a few years ago called Stretch Therapy, and I have an entire stretch routine for the office in that book because we don't think about how do you stretch. Now, for me, because I don't work in an office and I would climb the walls and lose my mind, I did work at an office for a little while for a favor, and I got up on every hour to stretch because my body just can't sit for that long. Yeah. So that's sort of what made me develop it. But I put this little routine together for the office in that book, Stretch Therapy, so that you can stop every hour and just take a couple of minutes. But my favorite stretch is the doorway stretch. And it is that you put your hands inside each side of the door and you step forward until your arms are straight behind you. Lift your chin up and then stretch and feel your whole chest open up. Because when you're sitting at a desk, your chest is blocked. It's closed while you're typing. And so when you do the doorway stretch, you open up the chest. People get a little bit stuck because they look down when they're stretching. Don't look down when you're stretching. Let that whole spine be part of this process. So you kind of look up or at least look forward. But you're stepping forward. Your arms are straight behind you. They're on each side of the doorway. And you can feel the whole chest, neck, back opening, expanding, bringing your posture back into squared away. And I have to give a caveat because I'm a little embarrassed to say this. I do that stretch before and after every massage because I'm working like crazy on somebody, right? And I need to open up my chest again. But I did it one time, and the door closed on me, and it broke my finger. So be careful what stretch you're doing. It was a really heavy door, and my finger happened to be right in the crack of it, and it slammed on it. It was the tiniest little break, but a break nonetheless. It hurt like the dickens. And so even though I always say it's my all-time favorite stretch in the world, it is. But be careful where you're placing your hands before you do that stretch.
Just a little food for advice there.
My little
food
caveat.
for thought. Yeah. Oh my goodness. And I think I have time for one more question. I know we've covered so much, and gosh, there's so much more yet to cover in your book, The Body Heals Itself. So what final thoughts do you want to share with our listeners?
I really wish that I could show the world that your body can heal in ways that until now nobody's really given you permission to believe. Mm-hmm. And miracles, whatever you want to call them, happen every single day all over the world, and you're allowed to have yours. So if I could give anything to anyone, it's to listen to your body, listen to your mind, try to just be fully aware of what's going on inside you so that you can have your best life right now and believe that you can heal and that miracles, they really are, they're totally available.
Yeah. Well, and it's, I find it fascinating how our muscles and our bodies really, just our physical body can really relate to so many different things. And, doing body work and energy work can move us from places where we're feeling like, gosh, we can never get past, to a place that, we're experiencing freedom for the first time.
Yes. And your physical body is so beautiful. It's so sad that we always are picking at it and want to lose weight and want to change things and want to be something else. But, if we actually get hurt, we go, oh, my gosh, I didn't realize how much I love my foot. I didn't realize how much I use my pinky toe. I didn't realize how much this thing mattered. It all matters. So if you're, functional and, fully alive and things are working, don't take it for granted. Don't wait till you get hurt. Be grateful.
Yeah, and start making those changes and shifts today. Well,
yeah.
And so where can our listeners, Emily, where can they connect with you and be part of your community? And do you do appointments? Where are you located that you do appointments?
I'm located in Atlanta, Georgia, and I do appointments, but I'm very specific of who I work on. I really like to find people that need me specifically. I don't just like do a massage to do a massage. So people find me when they're ready to shift, and I really trust that process. But you can find me on my website, and we can discuss that if you do want to come see me. My website is Emily, Emily, A, like Apple, Francis, Francis, books. You have to have books, otherwise you're going to find somebody else. EmilyAFrancisBooks.com. And I have
plural.
An email there, plural, EmilyAFrancisBooks.com. And it's I have an email on there, and my Facebook and my Twitter and all that good stuff that we have out there now. So it's The Body Heals Itself, and it's EmilyAFrancisBooks.com.
Well, I know your book is available at all major retailers, and I'm lucky enough to have my copy, and gosh, what a great resource it is. It's got.
I'm so glad.
Oh, I love it.
Honestly, I have to say, it's 20 years of study. It's all my love put down into pages. It's everything I've ever learned along the way.
Mm-hmm. And you even give some additional tools for people if they're looking to do like a cleanse, which I found fascinating because a lot of times they're like, gosh, I feel like I've been around like a group of people or in a subway or something like that where you're just around a lot of people who you don't want to be picking up their energy, you know?
Yes. That's true. You do have to know how to protect yourself, and we discuss that. And in Appendix B, I go to all kinds of different people that are very good at what they do. I have Ayurvedic medicine in there, emotional freedom technique, the tapping technique. I have a lesson in forgiveness. I have meditation. I have that woman that does the toe reading. And these people all wrote themselves what they teach because I just couldn't do it justice. So it's all different professionals in the field that are really the top of their field, and they write to introduce you to different concepts so that hopefully by the time you finish this book, you can think, oh, that is what I've been needing. I just never knew it existed. That's where I got to go next.
Yeah. And check that out. Well, Emily, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me today.
You want to make sure to pick up Emily's book, The Body Heals Itself. It's available at all major retailers and, of course, on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. We're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.